Good evening, and welcome to another episode of The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Perry.
And I'm your host, David. Tonight we're talking about The Expanse and Philosophy, an entry in the Blackwell Pop Culture and Philosophy series. We've been talking about this book for a while now. We're finally here to talk about it. But before we continue, you can find us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast.
That is correct. And as I say every single week, you should find us and follow us because we are great. We are awesome. We are a good time. And now we're getting into the other stuff that comes with our sci-fi fandom and Deep Space Nine. Now, while this is a little bit of a departure from Deep Space Nine talk, it still fits in with the overall theme of our show, of course. And we will be returning to Deep Space Nine and Deep Space Nine related materials soon. But since we also covered this book series throughout our breakdown of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, we figured this would be a great way to wrap things up a bit by talking about some of the philosophies behind the show that we also enjoyed so much. So if you
Yeah.
haven't watched the show yet, it's still available. I checked earlier today. It is still available on Amazon Prime. I know there was a lot of talk about them removing it. Doesn't seem like that's happened. I think that was one of those things where it was happening for like Amazon people for people who had access to Amazon like overseas. Maybe it's gone for them, but for us, as it stands right now, we're still good. So go watch it while you can, and pick up this book, also available on Amazon, and you can give us your own take on some of the philosophies behind, or what they're claiming anyway, is behind the the show, not the books, the show.
Well, it's kind of both, but
Well, and regardless of even if they did include the show, it's only like the first part of it,
yeah.
not they
Season
don't finish the series. Yeah,
Yeah.
season 6 is missing.
hmm
But anyway, David and I, you know, went through this as best we could. It's 23 chapters. Each chapter seems to be covering a different philosophy or presenting a different philosophy anyway, some of which we agreed with, some of which we did not. We're, of course, going to talk about those things and go on from there. So, David, oh, wait. Before we jump into it, because I was ready, man. I knew where I wanted to go.
hmm
But as always, before we jump into anything, we do like to give ourselves a little weekly recap since it's been a week since we've really sat down and talked with each other. So, David, how has your week been?
Week's been interesting. Last Monday, I was supposed to go in and start this new job, but I had somehow misunderstood something about needing to get my background check done the week before, so I needed to get that done. And so on Monday, I tried to get it done, but there was a problem with the website of the company that that I'll be working for in part, and their like the application to do the background check and like signing away like yes I agree, for some reason it wasn't working. I have spent all of last week trying to get that solved. On Friday they said we're going to have to call you back on Monday. So tomorrow I'm hoping for a call back and they'll be like, okay, it's ready to be, it's fixed, here you go, do it. And I could do it and I could finally get the application or the background check done and finally start work, because as much as I love having a month off from work and not having to do anything, I need to get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that next paycheck as soon as I can get it. So, needless to say, it's been a little bit harrowing to be waiting for that to come through, but I trust that things will work out fine. In the meantime, I've been watching a playthrough of the game Hollow Knight Silk Song by there's a gamer named Fireborn. He's like the best Hollow Knight player. I don't know if you know the name of the game at all, Perry. It's a Metroidvania style game with a it's called Soulsborne style difficulty. It's like a difficult game, a lot of platforming, and I am not good at platforming. I played the first game and I got close to the end but didn't finish it. I was just like, I'm just done. And that was years ago. And then finally this new game came out last month, and now that I have free time, I thought about buying it and trying to play it. I was like, you know what? I'd rather just watch someone who's really good at it play it. That's been kind of fun to just watch that, but it's been literally just kind of hours of just watching people play a game. So in the meantime, I've been reading. I did start the autobiography of Ben Cisco, which has been good so far. I'm about 75 pages in. Yeah, there it is. I have enjoyed it so far. It is a true autobiography. Like right now, he's only about 10 years old, 75 pages in. So he is still a youngin. We're getting a version of what his life is like. It's interesting though because the like prologue, just to give people a quick understanding, the book is presented to Jake Sisko, or I'm sorry, it's Jake Sisko editing things that he's been given by his father after his father has gone into the wormhole. Basically, a year after the wormhole, um, or after he goes to join the Prophets, they get a message from the wormhole for Jake, which explains his biography. He wants Jake to basically know his history before he starts losing track of his memories because he'll be in and out of time. So it's written as Jake introduces it as I edited this down from what he sent me, but the book is written as if to Jake, and it's been good so far. Like I said, 75 pages in. We get an explanation for why he was interested in shipbuilding, for example. Why did he end up going into shipbuilding and building the Defiant? We're not. I'm not at the Defiant yet, of course, but they set up those why that's going to happen. Uh,
Okay.
um, we get an extended family. His brothers and sisters. His not his mother Sarah, but his other mother Elizabeth, the one who actually raised him, and her story. But yeah, we'll talk more about that when we get to it. But so far, it's been good. I recommend anyone who's been interested in the show picking that up. The one interesting thing that's curious, last week we talked about um, the retrospective documentary about Deep Space Nine, and in the eighth season episode that they wrote it as though the child that Cisco and um,
Cassidy.
Cassidy had was a male child, but according to the autobiography, it's a female child. Now, at the moment, that doesn't matter. It's just to say, the child's been born. It's a girl, and so Ben Cisco is saying to Jake Sisko, take care of your sister, that kind of thing. But it's curious. It does mean that there is technically a divulging of what the storytelling, what the official version of what happened there would be. But yeah, that's been that. And other than that, just relaxing, enjoying myself, not doing a whole lot else. What's up with you?
So we can actually fix that with the retconning real quick because I was aware of this, and basically, this book is considered canon. So everything here is it. So if this book says it's a girl, it's a girl. The documentary, what we left behind or what they left behind, was something that was put together and filmed before this was written.
Right.
And let's not forget, if it's not actually appearing on screen, it's not considered canon. That's the other thing too. So they can talk about it all they want to, but until filming takes place and it's viewed, it does not count. But this was officially recognized along with the other books in this series. There's one about Picard, Janeway, Kirk, Spock. These are all recognized officially as canon. So that's the easiest way to get over that discrepancy. If it's in here, if it's in one of these, that's canon.
Right.
All right. Other than that, my week has been pretty easy, pretty laid back. Dealing with some family stuff, but it's not like hard. It's just who's going to do what and who's taking care of what and all that kind of stuff. It's the everyday humdrum family drama that no one really talks about, or because it's not the big of a deal. Work is steady, work is good. I'm all right, kids all right. We're happy, we're healthy, we're just moving on. Nothing really exciting going on for this guy right now, which for me is amazing. All right. No major dramas, no major upsets going on for me. So we're gonna try to ride this humdrum train all the way to the end of the rails. All right. So let's get into it. Let's get right to this book, The Expanse. What chapter do you want to start with? I think you know
Well,
which
it's
one.
basically it comes down to, do we want to start by bashing the one chapter and then get into the good stuff later, which I
I
feel
mean,
like we just
the
should get out of the
bashing is
way.
the good stuff.
I
The
know.
bashing is the good stuff.
Yeah, I say we
S-
go for it and get
All
that because
right,
it's also one of the earlier chapters, so we
it
can
is.
we can
It
knock
is,
it out.
and instead of having to go and trying to go point by point, chapter by chapter, that's going to be impossible. This is again, it's a 23 chapter book. Each chapter is about something or someone different. Um, yeah, so we're not going to be able to do that. Or I mean, we could, but it would probably take a couple of shows to do that.
Yeah.
Um, with that being said, we are going to start with our favorite chapter that we love to hate, and that would be chapter 4. And this chapter was entitled "Hate Expectations: Politics and Gender Roles in the Expanse," written by S.W. Soundheimer. Now, I have to admit, I just going to start off and say I was kind of excited when I started this chapter because it opens with a Christian Avasarala quote. And as we all know, I love that character.
Yeah.
And I was excited because the opening part, politics and gender roles in the expanse. I thought we were getting ready to have a phenomenal breakdown of the character Christian Avasarala, which is what I have been wanting because I've been fascinated by that character ever since I first saw her on screen, and then even more so as I read about her in the books. And that's not what we got
Right.
in this chapter. So,
Nope.
with that being
This
said, David, go ahead.
Well, to be clear, this chapter reads like someone who didn't actually pay attention to the show. They only watched like this one episode, or they skipped earlier stuff to get to this episode.
I'll
And
do you
all
one worse. I feel like this is a person who heard about The Expanse and went to YouTube and watched a bunch of clips on YouTube and then
right.
said, I know everything, and started furiously typing. That's
Yes.
what this was.
This author, S.W. Sondheimer, however you say it, she comes off as someone who's very bitter. I mean, it's about gender roles, and basically her premise is that the reason Avasarala doesn't get elected as the leader of the world all over again, like prime minister or whatever, or president of the world, whatever the role is titled, and loses to Julie Mao is because both in the real world and in the fictional world of the Expanse, i.e., the writing of these male authors, is such that women can't ever win anything like
They
sexual.
yeah, they can't win on the merits of being a woman. Like
Yeah,
she loses because she's too manly. And then
yes,
another way and then in another voice she's too matronly. And there's this whole thing in there that this author is doing where she keeps bringing up
male
um,
philosophers
male
who
philosophers, but in particular, there's one she's got a bent against, and I'm trying to remember his name.
Aristotle.
Yes,
Yeah,
she hates him. It's very clear that she does not like him. She doesn't like
yeah,
any of his philosophy. She's never agreed with anything that he said. And
right,
this is more written like she used the expanse as an excuse to work out her dislike of this
right,
particular philosopher. I really don't know why they included this chapter in this. I know she writes another chapter in this book. I have not read it because I was so thoroughly upset with how she mischaracterized Avasarala in this chapter that I
mhm,
just refused. It almost was enough to make me stop reading this book.
yeah,
Her chapter was so bad.
yes,
And there's this whole thing in there where it's like she's explaining it, but in the same breath that she's explaining it, it's also like it seems to me like she's also saying, if you're a man, you're not gonna get it. So
don't
I'm
come at
wasting
me.
my breath. Right. I'm
Yeah,
wasting my breath even trying to explain it to you. And if you do try to talk to me about it, you're still not going to get it because you're a man. So I'm not going to waste my time. Like
right,
that's a problem for me because then
right,
you're not allowing for people to really engage with you when you um shut down more than half of your audience
right,
like that.
right,
Um, talking of gender roles, especially in anything as complex as a series like The Expanse. Is always going to be something that you're going to get a lot of different viewpoints on. But
Right.
if you're going to be so adamant that you're willing to write a whole essay about a very prominent
Hmm.
main character the way
Right.
that she does, you have to be open to hearing dissenting views to what you
Right.
write. And she's absolutely not. She's like, this is it. I'm putting the final word on this character. And Avasarala is not great.
Right. Well, and to be very clear, the reason this chapter is so bad is because she totally misses everything that's happening in the story itself, which explains why things are happening. Avasarala, for those who need a recap, in season 4, she is technically in charge. You know, the other characters like Aaron Wright have been dealt with, and so power has fallen to her, but it's an election season, and she has to try and get elected. Meanwhile, there's this other character, a woman, Gao, who she's up against. And Avasarala, being aware of the dangers of the protomolecule, is like, we can't just all rush through the ring gates. We got to be sure that we take care of whatever dangers are out there. It's too risky to just, be stupid about running out to the, far ends of the universe. We got to be careful. Meanwhile, basically, Gao is like, people want to go. I'm going to say go. I want to have a hopeful vision for the future. And so that's why she gets
Yeah.
elected. Now, anyone who knows anything about Avasarala for the first 3 seasons knows that she is a capable character. She is a gray character. She's done some bad things. She's done a lot of great good things. She's got a very clear arc in the first 3 seasons. But the whole point of season 4 is to, yes, put her on her back foot. She is supposed to take a hit in season 4, in book 4, in order to step forward into the next books of the next season. She's supposed to grow from this moment. And the reason this author feels so annoying is because she doesn't bring up season 5, or if she does, I think it's in like
It's
ways
it's almost too late. She brings it up towards the end
right,
of her writing. She brings it up very much towards the end. She mainly is focused on the appearances of Gao to Abasarala.
right,
She does not allow whatsoever for you to kind of take that journey of the character development of Abasarala, going from the deputy undersecretary position where she was kind of third in command basically
right,
and doing things in the shadows to a certain
right,
degree to her uncovering all of this corruption and misdoings and everything else that the others, Aaron Wright and so forth, were doing and bringing them into the light and making them pay for it. She
right,
in no way gives Avasarala any kind of credit for personal or professional growth. And
right,
so now she's trying to stack these two characters up. Gal presenting her as this ever optimistic. It's kind of, this is the person who was all about the forward advancement. Let people go out, let people do this, all that kind of stuff. Versus Avasarala being this, older, dogmatic individual who wants everybody to remain where she can control them and not letting them go out and do whatever under the guise of, we don't know what's going on. We need more time to study,
right.
which again shows that this is a person who did not actually watch the show because Abasarala was proven right on multiple occasions to
Exactly.
be cautious and to be studied
Right,
before taking any kind of step or advance. This author, Soundheim, gives absolutely no credit to that whatsoever.
right.
Instead, she keeps flipping it back to, is it Aristotle? I feel like it was somebody else. Homer. No, not Homer. I'm sorry.
No, it's Aristotle, but also David Hume that she hates.
Yeah,
David
Hume.
Hume.
Eight. Yes. She attacks those two because they at certain points in their development of their particular philosophical views specifically talk about how women are basically objects.
Right,
They're there to uh, perform a certain function or task, and that's it. Any next level heady thing is beyond their scope. And
right,
if you put a woman into those kind of positions where they'll have to think that way, they'll fail every time. And they
right,
don't give a reason for the failing other than because they're women.
right,
And it's like she hates that they say that so much that she then tries to flip it and make Abasarala the exception that proves her rules somehow. Because it's
yeah,
like, here's Abasarala who should be this very forward thinking person, but she fails, and Gao is what we really need. And I'm like, you're missing the point entirely. That's what I kept thinking the entire time, every line. You're
Right.
missing the point entirely. So Avasarala is not like what Hume and Aristotle are saying
Right.
about women at all.
Well, that's what's so interesting, though, is because she's insulting the authors. She basically says that the authors of The Expanse are misogynistic in that they are somehow, in her mind, reproducing the misogyny that the real world, like David Hume and Aristotle, have presented, and therefore the authors of The Expanse are just as guilty. And she doesn't say this explicitly; she's insinuating it the whole time.
Yeah,
But they're
heavy
just as
insinuation.
guilty
Heavy
of being
insinuation.
misogynistic assholes as in the real world, which is just like there's no mention of Naomi, there's no mention of Drummer, there's no mention of Avasarala's history.
All of these strong female characters that these two male authors created, by the way,
Yeah,
vastly complex. Not it's not a copy and paste of these characters at all.
right,
Drummer is vastly different from Nagata, who's vastly different from Abasarala, who's
right.
vastly different from Mao, from Gao. They're all they've made very, very fully fleshed out
Yeah. Who's,
different characters.
I mean, look at it this way: who's the main character who starts everything? Julie Mao is a hard-hitting, honorable woman who her choices jumpstart this whole story. Like
Yes.
there are strong female characters in this story, and we love them all.
It's full of them. Bobby Draper,
Yeah.
again, obviously, she doesn't talk about any of them. It
No.
really is. She really did zero in on Avasarala and the Avasarala and Gao political theater,
Yeah.
and then again, like totally misses the point. And
Well,
key moments of that, like when
yes.
Abasarala has to go after they had tried to, have that strike force that was going to take out Anaros, and it failed, and so
Right.
Abasarala has to go and apologize to the people.
Well,
She
that's it. This author is like she had to do it because she's a woman, and if she was a man, no one would have cared. No, the whole point of the plot is that Avasarala knows that she has to find a way to bridge the gap between Earth and the Belt. And one of the ways that she can do that is by apologizing when she does something wrong. And that is what a good leader does, admit their
because
mistakes.
and the reason that she has to do this is because, as it's pointed out if you read the books and if you watch the show, the level of mistrust between Earth and Mars, Earth and the Belt, it comes from the fact that there were so many previous leaders, Sadovir or whatever his name is, Aaron Wright, who
Hmm.
did things, and even when they were wrong, did not acknowledge them, did
Right,
not apologize for them. It
right,
caused this chasm of mistrust to develop between the various powers. And
right.
Avasarala, having been behind the scenes for a lot of this and having recognized this, showing her growth and understanding as a person, says, I'm not going to continue down that same path that these previous
Exactly.
leaders have done. I am going to show the people full transparency.
Right.
I made that call. I made that decision. That
I
decision
made that
was wrong.
mistake.
I am owning my mistake. I'm
Right.
stepping forward. I'm accepting ownership, and I'm doing this. And then Soundheim says, "Nope, nope. You did it because you're a woman, and they made you because you're a woman."
Yeah.
And it's weird that her seemingly pro fem message almost sounds as denigrating as any I've
Yeah.
ever heard. Like
Yes.
she
She
can't
is more
wait to
down
bash.
on women
Yeah.
in her negativity about anti-feminism. And here's what's so crazy about all that, because that's happened in season 4. This book only goes through season 5. And in season 5, we see Avasarala stand up and leave the cabinet of the new guy who comes along after Inaros has bombed Earth. And she's like, I'm not going to stand up for doing things like we have in the past where we just kill a bunch of people in retaliation. That's what's led to this moment. So Avasarala in season 5, she has lost power, but she regains her power when she says, I won't do this thing. Like
Mhm.
that's a brilliant moment in season 5. And nothing, no, I don't think she mentioned that here.
She
And then,
doesn't.
and
She doesn't mention
unfortunately,
anything that was contrary to her viewpoint of Avasarala being a token,
right,
basically.
right,
She left out. She
right.
absolutely left out.
And here's the problem. Now, because this book came out before season 6 was out, she didn't get a chance to see the scene where Avasarala meets Drummer in the middle of the walkway in one of the stations. I think it's Palace Station.
Hmm.
That scene is amazing. Drummer, this badass woman, she's been out there. I mean, Avasarala's never had to actually pull the trigger of a gun. Drummer has. Drummer's been a leader who actually had to execute on her own decisions. And so when Drummer and Avasarala meet, Drummer throws the typical, Earthers aren't trustworthy kind of garbage. But Avasarala, she catches it and swings it right back. She's like, I hear you. I take the criticism and I toss it back at you. What are you going to do about it? How are
Right.
you going to handle the situation now that I'm here?
Yeah, 'cause that's the
That's
other part of it too. She's like, "You can say it, but I'm here now." Like,
right,
that was also part of the problem is that we were slinging insults at each other from thousands and thousands of miles away. Well, now I am face to face
right,
with you, being
right.
accountable, just like you're being accountable, and you can't dismiss me, nor can I dismiss you. So what are you gonna do?
Exactly.
And this is
Exactly.
completely missed by
Right.
Soundheim.
And again,
Um,
she's not writing in with season 6 in mind, so I can give her at least a break for that. But it just shows you that you can't insult the authors with this nonsense. I mean, the authors were writing the show as well. So while that scene, I don't think really it didn't appear like that in the books. That's a fantastic scene in the show, and it's just an example of her missing the point. Avasarala, by regaining her power in season 6, it shows not only that she's grown, but that change is happening. And to say that Gao wins because she was a motherly figure to Earth, while Avasarala is too manly. No, that's not the problem. Is that Avasarala knew the dangers, and her fears about the dangers in season 4 keep her she's unable to explain her fears properly to the people, because of course she's been there and she's seen the dangers. The
Well,
people
and that
haven't.
and that's the other part of it too. She is aware of the dangers, but a lot of the things that she has seen has all been cloak and dagger stuff. And
Right.
the main people that she would kind of need for evidence to prove it, they're either dead, in jail, or they're on the far-flung reaches out there
Of
in the
the
ring space
universe.
or else, so they can't come back and vouch for what she is saying and everything else. So
Right.
all she really has is her experience. Meanwhile, she's got Gal, who is they're surrounded by beleaguered people. The earth is
Yes.
struggling, it's
Right.
overpopulated, resources are low, people are tired of the infighting between Mars and the belt, and suddenly we're hearing these initial early reports of multiple ring spaces opening up with habitable planets and a boundless supply of resources.
Resources.
And this old crony who, for all of her I saved Earth nonsense, she is a part of the old guard.
Right.
She is a part of that old group. And
Right.
now we have a new leader who's like, no, or potentially new leader
Right.
saying, no, let's go. It's the
Right.
gold rush all over again. Let's
Right.
get people out there, and the tenacity of the human spirit will carry them through.
Right.
And Awasarala being Awasarala, she's not being gentle about it. She's
No.
basically saying, "Are you all
I
fucking morons? Like
Yeah.
you're
Were
gonna
you here for
die.
the last two wars?
Right, you're gonna die. Like, you don't know what's out there. Just because it looks pretty does not in any way mean that it's habitable. I'm trying to save you, you morons." And that's how she's phrasing it instead of being all
Right.
nice and, well, let's hold hands and whatever. You know,
Right.
she's telling them the realities of their situation.
Right.
Gao is promising a utopian opportunity. She's not
Right.
highlighting any kind of dangers.
Right.
Nothing severe. If there
Right.
is a danger out there, you'll overcome it. You're plucky humans.
Right.
You'll get it right eventually. Don't worry
Right.
about it.
Right.
Meanwhile, now's the time to stake your claim. And
Right.
Avatar was like, you will die. You
Right.
will get there and you will die. There's no
Right.
infrastructure for you. There's no studies that have been done. There's nothing. You will die. You
Right.
will die. If you don't set up a colony and have it instantly successful, you'll be dead inside of a year. I'm
Yeah.
trying to save you from that. And people don't want to hear it.
Right.
And
Now I
instead of being applauded for her um,
wisdom.
bluntness, yeah, her the upfront nature with which she is, giving them this news, this author paints her as this almost curmudgeonly, she's being too mannish in the way she's delivering this.
But again, she's being too mannish for these misogynists. All these misogynists can't handle Avasarala's being an upfront and
It's
upstanding
the
person.
weirdest way to phrase it I've ever
Yeah.
heard.
Well,
You're right though. That's the best way to sum it up. She's too mannish for misogynists.
yeah,
What? Like I've never
exactly.
like how wrap your mind around that. Let's where the mental gymnastics going for that one.
Exactly. And for I lost my train of thought. Damn it. Avasarala. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. She uses things like the scene with her husband, where after she tells the story in a public speech about her son dying. Her son was a Marine. He died in an act in a conflict. In the speech, she seems to talk about him kind of on the spot, kind of a in the moment kind of speech. But then afterwards, she reveals to her husband that she had planned to talk about him that way in order to earn some
Well,
sympathy points.
if I remember correctly, she sh- she had made the decision to use their son and he
Yes.
heard it and he called her on it. It wasn't
Well,
that
that's what
they
I'm
had a
saying.
discussion
Her
about it. He was just because he kind of confronted her. He was like, when did you decide to use our son?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Her
Yeah.
husband confronts her about why are you using our son this way? Because at first he's like, "Is this a real thing? Are you truly softening?" But then she's like, "No, I had planned to say that all along." And her husband is so upset that he like basically leaves her at that point.
Yeah,
That's where
they
the
they
breaking of the
separate. They
relationship
separate
comes.
for a while. Yeah.
Now, again, the author here, Sondheimer, acts like he's doing that because he's a misogynist asshole who can't handle a strong woman. No, he's upset that she is using ends justify the means philosophy to get what she thinks is best. We know what Avasarala is concerned about, and we know that what she's trying to do is arguably the right thing. But the question in season 4 is Avasarala trading her soul, her goodness, her uprightness by using underhanded tactics to try and convince people? For example, she
Yes.
leaks that Gao had basically cheated in order to get out of the basic economic circumstances, that someone, a family friend got her out of the basic economic plan that everyone basically is on. So we know that Avasarala, who was always a devious character, is suddenly struggling to not be devious in public. But
Well,
that's who she is, in the sense that she's someone who's willing to do what's necessary to get things done.
okay. I will give you
Yeah,
that. I was going to say I'm going to have
yeah.
to walk back the whole her being devious thing because I don't think
Well,
to
she's
me
not devious in a evil way, but she's willing to manipulate people. Like in season 1, she finds out about stealth ships from Mars, or that they don't have them, because she talks to the diplomat in a certain way, which gets Mars to reveal their hand, basically. So she's very good at playing people off each other. She knows how to manipulate public opinion, or at least get people to do things. But now it's at the point of, are you selling your soul to do the right thing? Like, is there a point where it's just like, you know what? Maybe people are stupid and they're going to go kill themselves out in the gates, beyond the gates. But that's the choice that they're going to make, and it's not for Avasarala to tell them, I won't let you. Maybe it is for Avasarala to say, okay, I'll do what I can to protect you as best I can, but at a certain point, you're on your own. So
and even to the
yes,
point that, even to that point, I distinctly remember Abasarala meets with Gao and says we should run these debates and this whole campaign and leave the discovery of the rings, all that stuff out entirely.
right,
We should not talk about these things. We don't understand them. We don't know what's coming from them. We need to turn away from this and make sure we're adjusting and answering what's going on right now on the ground. We need to leave
right,
this alone. Gao is the one who says no because she sees this is the one point that she's actually winning
right,
against Avasarala. Because she doesn't have the experience. She doesn't have the political capital to spend the way that Avasarala does. So she needs to score as many points as possible. And she sees this is an area where Avasarala's, stalwart, let's study it before we act plan is failing. So she's going to keep using it to score as many points as she can to eventually win. And she does. I mean, her win is short lived, no pun intended, but I mean, she does win. This author though, just like again, it's very clear to me She did not watch the show. She had to have just gotten clips. She might have watched maybe 1 or 2 episodes, but she did not watch the show. She did not really pay attention to her subject matter. I think she just saw Avasarala as a vehicle for her to discuss her dislike of Aristotle and
Hmm.
Hume.
Yeah.
And and so just to be clear on those, let's talk about those really quick because um that whole philosophy of women basically being objects is probably you know the crux of the feminist movement to a certain degree. And it's clear that this author is trying to show that women are so much more than that, which is fine. But I just find it so odd that she would pick this particular series, which is replete with female characters who are so much more and so much more complex, and does nothing with them.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
And I don't know if she was doing it because it's male authors writing female characters, which also seems to be a little bit of a beef for her because
Hmm.
she's just like, they're constantly miscategorizing women. And I'm like, are they really, or are you just mad that it's men writing women? Like,
Right.
because that's almost how it comes off.
Yeah, it really does because she insinuates that the reason that Avasarala loses the election is because she's too manly a character in the series for the authors, for the audience, for the real world to handle her manliness. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I'm going to
And
say
she's
this
like,
too, as
even
we,
for the future, she makes that point too. Like, this is supposed to be a book, set so far into the future, whatever, that, maybe one day these kind of attitudes might be accepted or whatever, but it's certainly not something that they've achieved very well. So you have guys in a past mindset trying to write a future representation and failing at it, which I just, again, I couldn't make sense of that. I was like, I
yeah.
don't understand
I
how
mean, if you
how
want to,
how they can be failing at it. It's future,
yeah, the
you know.
drummer Naomi, um, Dr- uh,
Draper,
Draper,
um,
Julie Mao, Clarissa Mao, even. I mean, Clarissa Mao becomes a hero. She starts off
even
as a
even
mass
Anna,
murderer.
even Anna Volovodov or whatever her name is, the
Yeah.
super compassionate speechwriter lady. Yeah, all of these characters were very dynamic in their own
Who are the
right and
major
filled.
villains? We have Mao, we have Aaron Wright, we have freaking Duarte in the finale of the whole thing. I
Mhm.
mean, name me a major female character who's actually a villain, to be honest. I mean, not that there aren't any. I'm just saying most of the or most of the villains are male. We have a pretty good share of male and female in terms of the heroes, but and then finally, before we wrap this part up, I just want to
Yeah.
say she also her ultimate conclusion with this whole chapter is to compare it to the 2016 election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and it is just frankly a talking about forcing a square peg in a round hole. It is a brute forced attempt to make a comparison. Basically, she's saying that Hillary Clinton would have won out except for misogyny, as opposed to people voting for Trump. Like I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. I voted for him last time because I liked how he was doing, but I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton either because I feel she was a corrupt politician. Like to simplify everything down to male versus female makes you a simpleton. This woman is a
See, this
simpleton.
is that's the failure of people who, when you have a very nebulous understanding of a situation and then refuse to do the work to clarify your position. So and I agree with you, it was a brute force attempt to make those connections, but she didn't do the work to make the
Yeah,
connections. That's
yeah,
that's my point there when I say the
yeah,
nebulous, sense that she had there. And again, the sense of entitlement that you get out of the way that she writes, to me, again, it's very clear she did very little research for that. And that's one other reason why she sticks it right there towards the end, because she doesn't have to really justify it. And then it's like her counter argument is always going to be, you don't understand because you're a man.
yeah. Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, that's
That
all it comes
that's
down to.
that's all what it every time.
Yeah,
And I will always have a problem with somebody who has that way of thinking about anything. If you feel like the reason another person can't understand is because of their gender, race, whatever it is, and
mhm,
you're not willing to do the work to help, lay out the foundation, make the connections, then your argument itself isn't worthy. And I
right,
shouldn't have to, suffer through listening to it. If she had wanted to take up at least half the time to go through how the political campaigns of Trump and Hillary stacked up, and we could see these, at least from her perspective, the ultimate failings which led to the downfall of Clinton,
mhm,
that would at least have been a little bit more compelling. But she
right,
doesn't do that at all. She just
nope,
kind of makes this whole grand statement, then just to get to the end and go, and that's why she lost misogyny. And then she, you know, and walks out.
right,
And we're just supposed to, what do you want us to do with that?
right,
So,
yeah,
and it's weird because the way that which she presents that too is a way that a lot of people often present arguments for. I mean, just about anything, abortion, um, uh, people's rights on, same-sex marriage, whatever it is. There comes a point where it's just like, instead of wanting to have a valid, discussion, you put your point, they put theirs, so forth and so on. It becomes a, well, you'll just never understand because you're XYZ, whatever.
yeah. You
Done.
get name
Yeah.
you start getting name called, and it's not interesting anymore to have a conversation with you at that point.
Yeah.
If you're gonna start name calling, then we're done. That's literally childish behavior at
Yeah.
that point. Um, yeah,
So
and I'll just follow up real quick and say I did read her other chapter. It's about whether or not Miller, because he becomes the proto molecules kind of vision that Holden
interface.
sees, and she's asking whether or not that's the actual Miller. Does if Miller has a soul, then is that really Miller, and does that vision that he see have a soul, Miller's soul? And ultimately, she concludes no, and I can see her reasoning. But the way she talks, it's true of this chapter we're talking about now and this later chapter. She writes as someone who's trying to prove a point by being really witty with her writing, and it comes off as grating. And it comes off in the way that she brings up Aristotle because she has to. She hates
See,
Aristotle. But go ahead, go ahead.
it's those people like that. It's that kind of insufferable know-it-all
Yeah,
where they
yes,
feel
that's
like they have
exactly what she is. Yes,
they have cornered the market on this one, area of knowledge, and no one sees it like they do. But
right,
instead of taking the time to walk you through so that you can see it as they do,
right,
they're just smug, and they
right.
present certain things, and it's like with this little knowing chuckle that is insufferable,
Yes,
and it makes you not want to listen to whatever it is that they're going to say.
exactly. And I can prove it with this sentence right here. She hates Aristotle, but she puts Aristotle up against Thomas Aquinas, the Christian philosopher, and has them have a literal. She presents it as if it's a wrestling match that they're having. It's really dumb, but again, she is a anti-religious person, very much so. I mean, this chapter she basically says that uh, um, her her Jewish teacher was an idiot, but she writes this sentence. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that the investigator does have Miller's soul, that Thomas Aquinas was right, and then in parentheses she says, "Gah, typing that actually hurt me physically." Lady, just write your point. Like, do
Right.
I need your personal commentary the whole time? It's just how
See,
she
and that
comes
was
off.
and that's a departure from the other chapters in the book too.
Exactly.
She
Yes.
presents everything with such a slant that it's
Right.
very hard to be able to take in what she's saying as legitimate,
Right.
because it's clear that when she's writing in any paragraph that she either really likes it and really thinks that she's just, firing on all thrusters on that one, or if
Right.
she really hates that person that she's writing about and
Right.
thinks that what they thought of or whatever it is was reprehensible or otherwise despicable. And
Exactly.
she can't help herself but to throw in those little jabs of things. Which again, it was very telling about her
Right.
than it was about the subject matter. If you
Right.
compare it to the other chapters in the book, which I mean we're going to try to get to, we spend a lot more time on this one than I thought we would. Um, but when you get to the other chapters, they do a much better job of presenting the philosophy they're basing whatever it is, whomever it is they're writing about. Like
Right.
when we get to the chapter about Amos, it's much more about his emotional state and
Yes.
how certain things can be viewed through him. We also have our chapter about patriotism and nationalism, as told from the philosophy of George Orwell, and
Yeah.
we're given a lot
Right.
about Orwell's philosophy before we get into how it necessarily fits into the Expanse. The author there wants you to understand the differences, the nuanced differences between those two paradigms basically
Right.
before getting into how they fit into the story.
Right.
Sondheim doesn't do that.
Nope.
Not at all. She just
No.
wants you to know, I hate Aristotle, I hate David Hume. Here's why.
Yeah. And here's my very hard-handed way of communicating it the whole time.
Yeah.
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 Heavy
So
handed. That's
we're gonna we're gonna
we're
stop
done.
with her because
Yeah, we're done.
we did spend way more time. I should have put a timer on
Oh,
us.
you and I
But we
spent a
I
good
knew,
hour just you and I
yeah.
debate just talking about how bad she was. So
And
this is the
and
edited
actually
version.
and I just have to say, because I know that anybody who may listen to this at any point in time, some might initially agree with her and may even call us misogynistic or whatever. I wanted to make it incredibly clear: we are in no way misogynists. In fact, if you've watched this show at all, we have talked over and over again about how various characters from across the board in sci-fi are done extremely well and are extremely popular.
Ensign
Yes,
Ro is one of my favorite characters in all of Star Trek, and
it's
she's
it's
only in
not
the show like 4 times.
right, and it's not to say that we just lose it over them or whatever. We call out the ones that are weaker characters who needed more development. We also are very quick to point out that it's not necessarily the actor or actress's fault. It's, these writers who didn't understand something or didn't think we'd understand something. We have done a great job, I feel, on breaking these things down. I have said over and over again, Christian Avasarala is my favorite character, bar none. Bar none. She is my favorite character.
Right,
We have talked, we can sit here and list off all the female characters that we have talked about and how great they are or how not great they are. But
right,
that's the point. You should be able to say that a certain character is good or bad, and it
right,
not necessarily have to do with gender.
right,
Okay. And if you can't handle a man telling you that someone who just so happens to be your favorite character is not that great, then that's a you problem. That's not a him problem. That's not
right,
him being misogynistic. No, we don't have to like them all just because they happen to be women. Okay, that's ridiculous.
right,
So I'm not going to let that fly. I'm not going to let that slide at all. You
right.
can go back and you can watch our show. You can see the things that we've said and everything else, and I'll stand by it 100%. We are in no way misogynist. This author, S.W. Soundheim, got the character of Avasarala wrong. There's
Yes,
no other way around
that's
it. There's no other
exactly
way
it.
you can look at it. She got her wrong. And
Yes.
you can go watch the show and then read that nonsense. And there's no way you come out of watching that show and reading this and thinking that what she wrote was in any way the character that you just watched.
Or
Not at all.
what the authors intended, what the show intended.
At all.
It was a bad read
It was.
on
Absolutely.
her part and a
This
bad
was
read to read.
It was more about her working out her issues than
Right,
it was at all presenting a legitimate philosophy and viewpoint on the character of Christian Avasarala.
right.
That's it.
Yeah. Very well said.
Thank you. Just wanted to put that out there. Now,
Yeah.
I think we should go ahead and talk about the patriotism versus nationalism
That's a
because
great
that was a
chapter.
great chapter. That
Yeah.
was a great chapter. This is chapter 11 in the book, and it talks about a distinction between these two mindsets that I found really interesting, especially in light of the political climate of not just the United States, but kind of the world. I feel like we're seeing this kind of uh, this patriotism, nationalism play out on almost a global scale with certain things. And I know initially when I was reading it, the very first thing I thought about was when I was growing up. Um, it was very often that I would encounter people who, you'd be doing something, you playing a game, or whatever, and at some point along the way, there'd be a fight of some kind come up, and someone would just be like, you don't do that where I'm from. I'm from Chicago. We don't do that in Chicago. I'm from, you know, Memphis. We don't do that in Memphis. And I just remember thinking, who cares? Like, what does it matter what city you're from? What
Right.
I never knew what to call that, and it was just so funny to me because finally, in reading this chapter and the way that Orwell presents the patriotism versus nationalism, that was instantly the first thing I thought of. And I was like, that's a nationalistic behavior when
Right.
you are, I'm from here, and you identify so much with just this one region, this one area, and you're doing things a certain way for that. Now he branches out from there, and we, or not, he doesn't, but the authors of this chapter branch out from there in a way to relate those to Earth, the belt,
Hmm.
Mars, and the people within them, like the comparison of Drummer and Inaros. Drummer being the patriot versus Inaros being the
The
nationalist.
nationalists.
And that's where we can start to make better comparisons to current day stuff happening in our
Right.
own country and how certain things are playing out on who would you call a patriot and who would you call a nationalist. And it's far more nuanced than you think.
Yeah.
So what did you think of this chapter?
Oh yeah, it was great. In fact, I think I have to take credit. I think I pointed out to you how great it was, and then you were like, "It's a
Yeah.
great chapter," and I was like, "Damn right it is."
Yeah. Well, because I was still reeling from chapter 4, and
Yeah,
then I read
it
chapter
took you
5, and
a
I was
while to
like,
finally
"Yeah,
get past that. Yeah.
yeah."
Anyway,
I have to admit, I as much as I try not to be, I have to admit, I do sit in my feelings on some things for a while, and, it
you're
took me, like,
totally
an
right
extra
too. Oh
I
my
I mean,
god.
it took me an extra week to read the book after I, opened it up and found out Abasarala was dead. I had to put it down and
Yeah.
walk away, and so then you have this it messes with me a little bit. I
Well,
try to not be that way, but it does.
as I told you, Perry, at the time I read chapter 4, I had a coworker sitting, at work with me, and I would stop reading and like try to explain to him, who didn't have
Oh,
any understanding of what I was saying, why this chapter was so terrible, why I was
well,
basically cursing out loud at this this chapter,
and real
and he
quick
didn't
on
care
that,
at
so
all,
no. Well,
Oh
so then
gosh.
David calls me just to
Oh,
complete the story. He calls me and he tells me, "You're not gonna like this chapter." And I hadn't gotten there. I think I was still on chapter 3 at the time. And so I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And so he hung up, and I was still in chapter 3, and I was like, "Let me just skip ahead." And I started reading, and I think through the second or third page, and I picked up my phone and I was instantly texting him. It's like, "What is this shit?" Like I was so mad. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, this got me.
yeah,
So anyway,
yeah.
patriotism and nationalism.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, I love how you went ahead and pointed out it's to use the two characters. It's Drummer versus Inaros. Drummer, basically, the authors are saying that patriotism is kind of a defensive posture in the sense that you're not actively trying to make people you. You recognize differences. You celebrate your own things that you enjoy about your own culture. You're proud of your own culture. Um, you brag about your culture, but in a good-hearted way. Deep
and you
dish
can
pizza versus New York style. That kind
and
of
and there's
argument.
also one thing that she also points out that's a key part of nationalism, and that is the ability to accept other people who may not be from
Patriotism,
your neck for patriotism.
right?
Yes. Sorry, did I say nationalism?
Yeah,
Doesn't matter. But I meant patriotism.
right,
But a key part of patriotism is being able to accept people who may not be from your neck of the woods, but who come to your area, come to your people, and want to help you cooperate, work with, help you flourish, do those things. We see this with Naomi. We see this with Drummer. These are people who, the when the inners come, as they call, like Fred Johnson and
hmm
so forth, they see the work these people are doing for their benefit, for
right,
their people's benefit, and they're willing to cooperate.
right,
From the nationalist standpoint, Inaros and Anderson Dawes are the two she points out, for all of their love of the belt and the belt people and the belt culture and so forth, they would never be able to accept fully a
right.
person like Fred Johnson because despite all the good that Fred has done, despite all the advocacy and the work that Fred has done, Fred is still an inner. Fred
Yes.
is still Earthborn.
Right.
Fred and Inaros even says, he considers them a different species entirely
Right.
from Belters and so forth. He can never be.
Right.
So that's another distinction between the two of them, which I found uh, very illuminating.
Yeah, and it illuminating is the right word because it really does give you a stark definition for both patriotism and nationalism to then use in, frankly, like politics. Obviously, that's
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
landscape where that works. And the question then becomes like, okay, well, how do we perceive people saying they're patriots or they're nationalists, and how well do they really match up with these definitions, and why basically nationalism is presented as a negative in the sense that, as you just pointed out, not only can you not overcome whatever group you're from in the eyes of a nationalist, but the nationalist is aggressive in his perceived superiority from his group. My group is not just different, it's superior. My
Yes.
group isn't just my own and I love it and I enjoy it. I want to dominate my culture over yours.
Yes.
Patriotism doesn't have to be dominating. It doesn't have to if it brags, it's at the very least in a fun way. Like, my
Yeah,
football team, my
yes.
yeah,
And it's also it's in a more open competitive spirit way.
right,
We may be good at this, but you can be good at it too if you can work with us. We're
right,
not excluding you. We're just showing you one of the many, many benefits of being a part of what we are.
right.
Versus nationalism is like, no, we're great and we're excluding you. And we don't care what you
Yes.
think you could offer us or whatever it is. You will never be on our level. You will
Right,
never be able to be what we are through the simple fact that you weren't born here.
right.
That is really the core of Inaros's whole thing. He
Yes.
wants the everything after the belt, and to belong to Belters. The
Right.
rings are exclusively the rights of Belters.
Right.
That's our territory. You guys are on Mars. You guys are on Earth. You control that. Meanwhile, while also saying you should control those things, I'm going to bomb you to extinction if I can,
Right. Right.
because we're still better than you. We don't need you, and
Yeah.
all you are is a reminder of
The only
of
reason I
this.
haven't destroyed you completely is because I don't have the means. That's the
Right,
only reason. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so when we look at how that compares, like, with our world today, like, I find that there are so many people who would probably immediately call themselves patriots, but their actions and their words would make them more nationalistic than
Right.
patriotic, if you will accept the way that it's presented
Here.
through Orwell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And as Perry just said, we're using George Orwell. The author of this chapter is Sid Simpson, and he uses George Orwell's definitions of patriotism and nationalism to come to this to approach this chapter and to use these characters to present the differences. Um, yeah, I mean,
Do you have that pulled up, by the way? Do you have the Orwellian
I don't have
patriotism versus nationalism?
I
It
don't
was
have the
right there at
quote
the
pulled up. Is it here in the chapter? You
Yeah, it
mean
was right
or
there towards the front, if I remember correctly. He gives a quick breakdown of both, which um, I thought was great. I'm just one chapter away.
I'll let you
Uh,
find it, and I'll just mention that. Well, while you find it, I'm going to mention that one thing is curious about this chapter, and one thing that I thought was really curious about what he chose to do here is that he chooses to. Oh, I think I actually got the wrong. Hold on, make sure I got the right chapter. Oh, I said I said Sid Simpson. That's wrong. You were right. It's two authors. It's Caleb McGee Huseman and Elizabeth Cusco who write this chapter. I was saying chapter 10. So yeah, chapter 11.
okay.
Mm,
So real quick, while he's fighting that, I'm just going to go ahead and give you this because I like this part.
yeah, go ahead.
Nationalism is not to be confused with patriotism. By patriotism, I mean the devotion to a particular place and in a particular way of life, which one believes to be the best in the world and has no wish to force on other people. Patriotism is of a nature defensive, both militarily and culturally. Nationalism, on the other hand, is inseparable from the desire for power. The abiding purpose of every nationalist is to secure more power and more prestige, not for himself, but for the nation or other unit in which he has chosen to sink his own individuality.
Yeah.
So it's, the implications behind those definitions is kind of stark, because
Yes.
it's like when you think, especially when you're considering the nationalism definition here, the seeking of your own individuality for the sake and prestige of your nation. That almost seems antithetical to some things that we believe here in the United States about, personal freedoms and autonomy, which also can be taken to certain degrees when you see people with their whole sovereign nation nonsense. But I just like those definitions worked so well for me in framing of these characters. Again, Marco Inaros and Anderson Dawes, both of whom tell these very tragic tales of how they came up in
Hmm.
their Belter world
Right.
and how they became this very pro Belter individual. And we see characters like Nagata and Drummer who came up in the same world, who's despite all of the same things going on for them,
Hmm.
they became devoted to um, an ideology, I
Right.
guess, over this very kind of pessimistic viewpoint of what can I get for me and mine,
Right.
and how far am I willing to go to get this for me and mine. And it's especially with Anderson Dawes, I re- remember in particular, he criticized Fred Johnson because he found out that Fred Johnson was keeping Cortazar. And he basically made it seem like you failed us once again, Fred Johnson, by not sharing Cortazar with us, even though you tried so hard to paint yourself in the Belter colors.
Right.
Your inner greediness won out, and
Right.
you were keeping the secret from us. But what does he do with Cortazar? He secrets him away, to which we never really see him again until he pops up with
On
uh, Winston
Duarte.
Duarte.
Yes.
So
They sold
Anderson,
him away.
right?
Yes.
Anderson Dawes very much did the exact same thing, if not a little bit worse, because
Yes.
he basically sold this guy into slavery,
Well,
all
not
for
even
the
just not even just that. It proves that he was just as willing to personally make decisions that are not only self-centered and self-justifying, but that are corrupt. Basically, is what
yeah,
I'm getting at. Like
yeah.
it's a corrupt decision that he ends up making by getting. Well, did Marco Inaros steal him away? I think Marco Inaros, part of season 5, is he somehow manages to get a hold of him. Right? Is that because I know the short
He
story?
doesn't get a hold of Cortazar. Not Inaros. That was all Anderson Dawes is doing. But
Yeah, he trades. The
Inaros,
short story is about them trading him to the Duarte faction.
yeah,
The what is that chapter called? The Abyss. No, the Vital Abyss. Is that what
yes,
that
there it is.
yeah.
Yes,
Um, Fascinating short story.
yeah,
Again, another example of the short stories being a little more hardcore than the actual books.
yeah, yeah. Go read some of those. Word or little warning: if you have small children, don't listen to the audiobooks. It's not good.
Not in
No,
the car.
story is good.
Yeah.
Take it from experience. Had on the car.
The
Was
Churn
the
and the
churn?
Vital Abyss. Do not
Yeah,
listen in a
don't do it.
public setting.
Don't do it. All right. That's all I'll say about that. Don't do it. Great
Yeah.
reads, great listens,
Yeah.
but yeah, check your children.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I really love this chapter again because I feel like what we're seeing in our own present day is a play out of patriotism over nationalism. And I do like the way that this chapter ends, where it talks about how, to use a term you used earlier, patriotism kind of starts off on its back foot there. It's on the defensive. It's always reactionary. And nationalism tends to win out because people like to play offense almost exclusively, like to play
Mhm.
offense. If they can play offense and defense, they will. But if they can always be on the offense, always attacking, then they prefer that to anything else. And I think we see a lot of that these days, and people not wanting to take accountability for certain things. And it's just easier to, instead of sitting with the real wrong of an action or decision
Right.
or a statute or whatever, it's easier to just be like, well, what about this? Well, that may have happened, but you did this and they did that, and then like and just kind of hammering away at all these other wrongs,
Right.
which now you've buried the reason that we're here, the reason that we sat down to talk in the first place. You've now buried that under a mountain of other things that, while connected, don't really have any bearing on why we're here. And now we've spent so much time trying to unpack and dig our way out of all of those things that by the time we circle back and finally get to the reason that we're here, time's up.
Right.
We still didn't address it. We still have this major problem. Now the problem is worse because we've essentially wasted time on it, um, and we've got no solution. So,
Yeah.
so
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
I So the book makes a point again about patriotism, and it's kind of it makes it sound like patriotism ultimately is where you want to be. It's just hard to get there, and then even harder to maintain.
Well, actually, if I may, the conclusion that these authors make is curious because they end with this. The Expanse's final word on the matter is that nationalism is bad, but patriotism is also bad because it inevitably loses to nationalism. So neither Camina Drummer nor Marco Naros has the correct attitude toward Beltalowda because there should be no Beltalowda, just as there should be no Earther or Martian. So I find that to be an
Well, so
interesting
it says
conclusion.
because it says at the end the solution is actually what Avasarala says.
Right,
This is what they fear, and
right.
I forget what the term is that they use for it. Um, what does she call it?
I,
She has a word
this
for
is
it that
how we
she uses.
win. I want y'all to take a look around. This is what Mark Renaros hates. This is what he's afraid of. Why he tried to so hard to destroy you and your ship. All you have to do now is turn every Belter, Martian, Earther into this.
Into
This is how we win.
this.
Yeah, I.
What's the
So I.
term they use for it? There's a they call it something. I wish I could find it really quick.
Basically, a universe of shared humanity takes precedence over all other loyalties. So while you're looking for that, if you're
Go
trying to
ahead,
look
yeah.
for it, what I find interesting is because yes, they do seem to be going toward the patriotism is the right way to do things. You know, Kamina Drummer being the example. You know, but then this conclusion here at the end is well, they first start off by saying that patriotism is also bad because it inevitably loses to nationalism, which I think is a flawed way of looking at it. Basically, they're saying that because nationalism is too aggressive, it can somehow defeat patriotism. But I would argue that just because something is defeated on the battlefield doesn't mean that the other thing was right. I mean, the Nazis won World War II until they didn't. So don't get that mixed up. You know what I'm saying? Um, so just because Mark Guanaros initially seems to win, he scores a big hit. I mean, he ultimately loses. So if we're sticking with the patriotism versus nationalism argument, then it would seem that patriotism still won. But their point is to say that, well, even patriotism has a flaw in that it creates boundaries, it creates,
Hmm.
separation between people, and we
Right.
need to get beyond that. And
Which
I,
is what
I,
that's the term that I was looking for. You're right. That's exactly where it ends. And the term that they were using for this particular movement, mindset, whatever, is cosmopolitanism.
yes,
Because
yes,
you're breaking down barriers, you're breaking down roles, titles, and locale no longer have a meaning.
right,
Whether you're from the belt, you're from Earth, you're from Mars, you're from the ring gates, whatever it is,
hmm
those titles mean nothing if you
hmm
can get yourself to a point of equal standing for all people.
right,
And that's what Avasarala is hinting at towards the end, and that's what they call it, cosmopolitanism.
right. And while on some level, I agree with that conclusion, I also disagree a bit because people will always come from a place and they will always, I think, feel a natural pride for the things that they at least are familiar with. You know, I grew up in Austin, so it's the UT college football team that people like, and that's who they cheer for in this area, and that's the team I'm going to root for.
Okay.
Like that can be in and of itself a simple. That's it. If it goes beyond that, that becomes nationalism. That's where it becomes a problem. So I
So
feel like their conclusion is right, but I don't agree with the way they got there.
okay. So this is where I'm going to say that Star Trek is a success story on this because what they're beginning to hint at towards the end here with Avasarala's statement and the cosmopolitanism, I feel like is what Star Trek has represented and embraced since its beginning.
Sure.
We've moved beyond these global concerns, and you will find people starting to refer to themselves less and less as I'm from Texas and more I'm from Earth, and then that even goes away to a certain degree, and it's I'm from the Alpha Quadrant, I'm from the Beta Quadrant. Then it becomes just I'm human. Your ultimate defining characteristic. I'm human.
Right.
So now you have eliminated, and I feel like that was always Gene Roddenberry's kind of message there, is that we've reached a point where we've outgrown all of these petty regional, gender, racial classifications, and that they have no bearing anymore on the overall mission that we're on and on what we're trying to achieve in the greater universe in which we all exist. And
Right.
so Avazarala is hinting at it here when she's saying this is what they fear. All of these different groups of people in a room talking, solving their problems, working things out before any guns are fired. We're here talking, we're working through it, we're getting a better understanding of each other, we're mixing, we're melding, we're becoming better, right? Star Trek is that whole idea
Writ large.
exemplified in the show. Yeah,
Right.
in large, blown up.
Right. Yeah, I would just say that as you were pointing out, like I'm human, I'm from the alpha quadrant. Like I feel like the natural inclination for people is to make distinctions between things, and a lot of times those can be artificial. To be very
Mhm.
clear, artificial distinctions. I mean, literally, what are borders, but an artificial, in some case, line. However, I think the reason we make distinctions is also in order to make judgments about what's right, what's wrong, and I think those are naturally going to appear. And so the idea that I like the idea of cosmopolitanism, but I don't think you're ever going to get rid of patriotism as described here in the book, in the sense of a I am proud of who I am, where I come from. That sense will always be there on some level, and as much as we might want to tamper it down, and that maybe be a good thing, I don't think it's a spark. I don't think you'll ever get rid of the spark completely, and it's something just to be aware of. That's my
Right,
point. Is like
and I think that's what they exemplify in Star Trek because there's plenty of times where characters do again they'll refer to themselves as just plain human or whatever, but then you'll find in more personal moments they will talk about how much they loved growing up on New Berlin on the moon, or like Captain Janeway, for example. She's from Bloomington, Indiana, and she talks about her home and walking across the farmlands and things like that, and things she enjoyed doing when she was a kid and in that particular region and so forth. Captain Picard, famously with the French countryside, still owns a winery. We see him retire there in Star Trek Picard. There's still very much a sense of the connection to those areas, but it's never to the point where it delineates into a nationalistic mindset
right,
of I am a Frenchman, so we must do things the French way.
right,
That never occurs, and by extension, of course, I am a human, so we must
right,
do things the human way. It's either our way or no way. Get out of our club, or you can never be in our club because it's a humans only club. In fact, the Star Trek Six movie, The Undiscovered Country, talks about that very line.
yeah.
They're accused. The Starfleet is nothing more than a humans only club, to which Dr. McCoy says that's not true. So there's
Mhm.
always that argument there being made that it's easy to see if you don't understand, but you have to have people like Janeway, like McCoy, like Drummer, like
Right,
Nagata, who stand up and say that's not the case, and we prove it with our actions by showing that we can work with anyone who wants to work for common goals, peace, the enrichment, fulfillment of others, so
right.
forth.
Well, I find it interesting you talk about that because I feel like part of the documentary last week was kind of hinting at with the Section 31 being the villains of that opening plot is that there is a nationalistic impulse in the Federation as presented by the Section 31 group, in that we do need to assume, we need to imbibe, we need to take in Bejor, we need to make it a part of us. There is something a bit aggressive on in that in the way they were going to tell that story. I mean,
Yes,
is
and
that
yeah.
do you feel like there are other
So
episodes that kind of exemplify a kind of more nationalistic federation like that?
there are some episodes that do, but again, they're episodes that always show how that kind of mindset is villainous. The Drumhead is another episode which reminds me of that. Admiral Nora Sati coming on board the Enterprise on Next Generation with Picard, and they're, rooting around for a traitor in their midst, and they focus on Simon Tarsis, whose grandfather or great grandfather happened to be Romulan. And so, because his grandfather happened to be Romulan, they were already ready to ruin this man, kind of making that nationalistic statement there. You are not of us. You've come close and
Right.
you're wearing our
You're
uniform,
tainted.
but you are, yes, you are forever stained. And Picard is standing up there and saying, this is not right. This man has done nothing wrong.
Right.
He just so happens to share a part of his bloodline with the current enemy. That is not his fault.
Right.
He did, and again, even in this situation, we have found the true perpetrators. They will be held accountable for their actions, but you are still on this, this witch hunt
Right.
for this individual, all because he's a little bit different, and
Right.
I'm not going to stand for it. That's what Picard is talking about here, and it becomes the sacrifice of individual freedoms and liberties at the sake of what we're saying is national security, but it's really this kind of dog whistling that they're doing here in this episode, which ultimately brings about the downfall of Admiral Seti. And that's Picard's lesson at the end to Worf too, is it's so easy to slip into that mindset. You think you're doing the right thing, and you started off
Right.
with a righteous cause. There was a traitor in our midst. We knew that, but we found him out, and we should have stopped there, and we didn't.
Right.
And those are the kind of episodes that when that I can think of that come close to this, and it always turns out that way. You started off with a righteous mission,
Mm-hmm.
but you've allowed it to be perverted and pushed into this other thing. And it takes a person like Picard or Captain Pike is another one I'm thinking of, who to right the ship,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Ad
Yeah.
Astra per Aspera is another one. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, that episode. So yeah.
Yeah. Um. The I guess we've kind of finished this chapter. I guess at this point,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's a great chapter. It was the one that like stood out as like I was reading it, and that was immediately making a lot of great sense. So that one stood out. I'm glad we talked about it. I want
Mhm.
to briefly go back, if I may, and just say there was a chapter about Amos. I think it's chapter like
7.
6, 7. There's two of them back to back, and
Yeah,
I'm
6
not
and
going to.
7. 6 and 7. 6 is about him in comparison to Nietzsche, which I
Mm-hmm,
didn't get all the way through. And then
mm-hmm,
chapter 7 is the one where it's like, is Amos that guy? The
right,
famous line from the episode where Amos kills Dr. Strickland for Pax,
right.
you know?
And Amos has always been my favorite character of Officer All Is Yours. And I just want to quickly say that the reason I like him is because he has a simple morality. He is good in the sense that as someone who grew up as a broken child, he's sensitive to the needs of children. He does not kill out of pleasure, out of spite, out of anything other than I am going to stop you from hurting other people. I will do whatever it takes to stop you from hurting other people, and I will also execute judgment. I am that guy when you have been guilty of doing the thing and you're not repentant. Clarissa, for example, is repentant of her crimes, and she killed way more people than Dr. Strickland, but Dr. Strickland was not repentant. Dr. Strickland was just trying to get out of the consequences when he tried to convince what's that character's name?
Pax.
Pax of Oh,
to
I
not
didn't,
kill
I
him.
didn't mean it. I didn't know it was happening. I was
Mhm.
just taking care of the girl as best I could. No, no, no. You were in on it the whole time. And Amos, yeah, I am that guy. Great line. I just want to quickly say it because is Amos evil? No, he is in some ways the most good character because
That's
he's
that's
he
kind of
doesn't.
the point that the author makes in that chapter too. Is
Yes,
it's not so much like it's Amos questions whether or not he's a good person,
right,
and it's something that he struggles with. And even in moments where it seems like it should be very clear to him that he is a good person, he doubts it all the more.
right,
The author of this chapter does say, ultimately Amos is a very selfless person. I do agree with that.
hmm,
If you're a person for whom murder of any kind is absolutely reprehensible, then you will always find Amos and characters like Amos evil.
right,
There won't be any kind of gray for you there.
right,
But Amos is very utilitarian in the way that he goes about the killings and even the beatings that he delivers, for certain people. Like when he fights Miller in the cafeteria or whatever you want to call it on the Rocinante, he recognized that Miller had something he needed to work out. He
right.
didn't care about that fight.
Yeah,
He just made sure that Miller was able to, square up and be good again the way he
yeah,
needed to be.
right,
And that was it. That's why he was able to go from fighting to not fighting so quickly. He
right.
had nothing in that fight.
Yeah,
So characters like that, and like I love the way they start the chapter out because they talk about him like he, the chill that runs down your spine when you encounter a person like Amos. That same chill to let you know this person is dangerous is something that he will never feel because he
right,
doesn't have the same, you know, connection. Um, I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that take. And as much as you try to put a character like Amos into a box, psychopath, sociopath, serial killer, whatever it is, none of them fit because
right.
he doesn't do things from the sense of like he doesn't get pleasure from killing. He's not angry when he kills. He's not seeking something when he kills. He's just identified a problem.
Yeah.
You've become a
He's
problem for someone, for him in a particular way, or for someone else that he has implicitly decided to trust.
right,
And the quickest thing he can think of to eliminate that problem is to, well, eliminate you entirely.
right. Yeah, like for example, in season 5 when how is names are always my freaking thing. The security guy who's the evil character and
Mercury,
Mercury, but Mercury's second in command is the chick that he hooks up with.
way.
He's mad that he was forced to shoot Way.
Yes.
He's not pleased about it. I mean, earlier on, he's like, if I need to rumble with Mercury said, like, he says to Mercury, you and I are going to cross paths one day. Or Mercury says it, and he says, you want to go right now? Like,
Yeah, because and
I'm
then
willing to
in that
do it.
whole scene, because in that whole scene, he's like, "Yeah, I'm good to go right now." He goes, "Because unlike everyone else, I know what you are. I
Yes.
clocked you a long time ago. They
Yes.
haven't woken up to it yet, but I see you.
You
I
killed and you
know.
did sense pleasure in the killing,
Yeah,
and you want to do it again, and you
you
can't
can't
wait.
wait to kill someone again, and I'm
Right.
here to let you know I'm gonna stop you."
Right.
Like that was his whole deal there. So
Yeah.
he was clocking Mercury the whole time, and that's
Yeah.
part of why. Like if you watch I've watched those scenes a couple of times, and if you watch from that moment on, Mercury spirals out of control. He
That's a
becomes
good point.
worse and worse because for the first time ever, someone is aware of what
Yes.
he is,
That's
and he
true.
and he
Yeah.
can't hide it from him.
Right.
He's hidden it from everybody else, but he can't hide it from him. And if you go back and you watch it, seriously, from the moment that Amos tells him that, Mercury gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
it's just like it's so telling. And like you can even in the moments when they all went blind and were depending on each other, even then when you thought you were seeing a glimpse of redemption in Mercury because he was letting them use certain, materials and whatever else, even then if you watched him, he was like clocking people and
Yeah.
being like, "We're gonna need this later. We're gonna don't
Yes.
do that because we're gonna need." He was already stacking his deck, and the
Right.
only person who really noticed was Amos. So
Right.
yeah, go back and watch those scenes again. It's brilliantly done. They did a
Yeah.
great job on the filming of this, the cinematography for it, because you watch this guy who doesn't It's like we're hearing the internal monologue. You're just watching his actions, and
Right.
he does. He gets worse and worse as it goes through. And I was like,
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah. Yeah. You're totally right. He does. He gets called out and loses it because he gets called out.
Absolutely loses it. And Amos tries to warn Way,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
you think that she sees it, but then it's like at the same time that you think that she sees it, Mercury sees it in her, and he gets her to reavow her loyalty to him.
Loyalty.
And I was like, ah, she's screwed now. So now
Yeah.
no matter what, she's blind because
Yeah.
she's just, he's kind of like, you know, mind break. He's
Yeah.
got
He
her,
called
you
her.
know.
He called her, and he knew exactly what buttons to push. Your
Yes,
loyalty
he
to the
did.
company. Your loyalty to
To
me and our
me,
people. And
right.
yeah, great, great buttons.
Yeah, he
Um,
got her.
All right. Well, I got two more chapters. I definitely want to at least go through quickly. I know we're already got an hour and a half in, but yeah. Was there another chapter you wanted to get to?
I did want to talk about chapter 5, but I have a suggestion
Sure.
because we're coming up on an hour and 30 minutes. And
Come
this,
back and do a part two.
yeah, let's do a part 2 of this and we'll cover those other chapters. That way we
And
can give them.
that's great because the chapter you want to talk about, chapter 5, is listed as uh, the banality of evil. Hannah Ardent and Jules Pierre Mao. One of the chapters I want to talk about is chapter 17, How to Be a Hero. Hannah Ardent and Naomi Nagata on making and doing politics. So we haven't talked about Hannah Ardent yet, but she actually gets mentioned multiple times throughout the book, those two chapters specifically. So yeah, I think it'd be great. We could save
Yeah,
her and those characters and those chapters for next time. So yeah,
yes. All right. We'll do that, and that way we can then give them the time that they need and really wrap this book up before moving on into other things. Before we end our show tonight, I will say that looks like we're going to be making some more attempts to get more episodes up on the various streaming platforms this week. So if everything works out, that's good news. But the bad news is, if it works, it's going to be like 5 episodes released all in one day. Like there's, I don't seem to have any control anymore over that. So I'm just going to be glad that they come out if they come out. So I'll make an announcement of some kind if they do make it out, that you can now go and listen to some of the other episodes that have finally been, uploaded. So just stay tuned on that. And I apologize if anything's out of sync. I'm just trying to get stuff out at this
right,
point. If you are following along with us and the books that we're reading, after we finish The Expanse and Philosophy, the next book that we'll be covering is the autobiography of Benjamin Sisko. You can order this on Amazon. I would highly suggest that you do. It's a great story. It's got pictures in it, even, which is always fun to see the artist renderings of the crews and stuff like that. It's one of the few that actually has photos. I've got the others. I've got the Kirk, Janeway, and Picard one. And those don't. So it's kind of sad that they don't have it.
right,
But anyway, go and check these out. If you are also wanting to continue watching, or I guess having the DS9 experience, go pick up those comic books that I talked about. They are the continuation. It's what happens after Ben Sisko returns from the Celestial Temple. So
right,
go and check all that out. No new Trek updates for us this week. Everything is on hiatus until new shows start up. So um, take this time to get caught up on stuff, basically. Other than that, guys, you can always find us and follow us wherever it is you do social media. You can, of course, catch all of our new episodes on YouTube, and then leave us comments for anything that you want to see coming up, and maybe we'll get to it. But until next time, take care of yourselves.